you tried to walk on water.
Yeah.
You tried to walk on water. Tell me about that really quick.
If you're not you,
Yeah.
like Jesus can't build on faith. Jesus can't.
So for all you young preachers out there, just reference Drake. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't take that from this. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure. So what's that sin that you struggle with? Identify it.
So yeah,
and create accountability for it.
A lot of times it's not a demon. A lot of times it's not a spiritual attack. You just need to eat, bro. You need to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have the powerful. You need to take a nap, bro. Hey, what's going on, guys? Pastor Abe here. Welcome to the Vine Church TV podcast. Today, it is my honor, my privilege to have with me a friend. I'm honored to call him a friend. The fashion icon, a mogul of our network. The lead pastor of now Home Church, which is awesome. The name just changed, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. The first time I heard this guy preach, was the first time I heard anybody preach like that, and I want to talk to him about that right now. But let's give it up for the one, the only Pastor Chris Scoz. Let's give it up for him. Man. Welcome, Pastor Chris Scoz. Thank you for being with us today.
I am going to hire you to introduce me every Sunday, my guy. Oh, so
it's all true, man. It's all true. Every time I see you, you look fly. I was telling my guys yesterday, I was like, I have like 3 outfits in my car. I was like, depending on what he wears, I gotta adjust, man.
I got people like that too, where I know if I'm gonna hang out with them, I gotta make sure I'm on my game. Yeah. No, but just an honor, Pastor
How are
Abraham. I'm good. It's so good to hang. You're such a good friend to us. Where our churches are very close. We've ran together now for the last probably 4 or 5 years since before the building.
That's right.
Both our building projects. And,
that's right.
Love you, man.
Come on, man. I love you too. And it's great to see.
Love our Vine Church family.
Thank you, bro. We love you too. And it's great to see what y'all are doing here. I'm still to do the tour after this. We'll get the tour of the building. Yeah. But I love the aesthetics in here and everything that that you're doing, but that God's doing through you as well, bro.
Good stuff, bro.
Look, today I want to talk to you about the subject or the concept of doing ministry for a long time.
Oh, man.
Okay, enduring, persisting, persevering, all these words that we see in Scripture. Let me share really quickly Matthew 25:23. Okay. It says this, his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. This is like, to me, my dream. My dream is to one day walk through those gates and hear good and faithful servant.
You did it.
That's my,
You did awesome.
That's exactly, that's the thing
you
for me.
It.
I don't care what else happens from here to there. I just want to hear those words, right?
Man.
But to get to those words, I mean, it says here, right? You were faithful.
Good.
Faithful, right? You didn't just do it for a little bit. You didn't just, try it for a week, see if you like this, switch something. No, you were faithful.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I want to talk to you about that concept. I think that doing ministry for a long time, how many years have you been doing ministry for?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So although we were joking earlier that I look like I'm 18 still, and I got the baby face, I'm 31 now. I became an intern at a church at 15.
Wow.
And so I've been
So that's when you started ministry, 15 years old.
Yeah, I would say intentional.
Okay.
I think those intern years, whether you're at a Bible college or an internship or whatever your route was, the idea of I am now following my calling in an intentional way. And so I'm going to serve and fall in love with the church and figure out the discovery process of it all. That was 15. My church, 15. Shout out to my church who gave a 15-year-old kid a shot. Wow. And I was turning in papers.
You said something right now before the pod. Say that again. You were like, our goal here is to hire what? What did you say?
Oh, yeah. Our goal is to hire 20-year-olds,
Come
man.
on. Yeah. Why is that?
Well, we were just talking about it. Like, we're young and we think we're doing church cool.
Bro.
But in 20 years, bro, we're not going to be cool.
Bro,
we're just not.
These guys that are behind the cams right now. So I think I'm young, and I share this all the time. I think I'm young.
Yeah.
And then I hear them talk.
Oh,
I'm like, bro, are they speaking in tongues? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't get it. Like,
Bro, I had to take a whole history lesson on what the word "riz" meant. You know what I'm saying?
My God. Or the way they text. Like, they'll text me stuff. I'm like, bro, I need discernment.
Can you use words?
Another level of discernment for this one. Yeah.
So I became an intern at 15, but really started the first time I ever got asked to speak outside of my church context. I think that's a memorable moment for every preacher.
Sure.
You're a preacher, I'm a preacher.
100%.
You kind of remember the first place that asked you.
Yeah.
And so I actually...
The trust.
I can't...
Bro, it's crazy.
So someone flew me out to Florida when I was 15. Bro. And I did a youth young adult conference and I preached on a Sunday.
The Lord just launched you to the palace right away.
Yeah.
Just like
and then
fly you
traveled
out
to
the
a couple
thing.
other states, preached a lot for my pastor who I interned under. He would take me at all his speaking engagements. Because we were part of a pretty large church. And so he would take me to his speaking engagements, and then he would either have me do the first point or the last point.
Wait, so like tag team? Really?
But I wouldn't know. He wouldn't tell me.
It was just like, be ready.
Just ready.
Ready in and out of season.
And in that season, he'd be like,
man.
okay, and at this time, one of my interns, his name's Chris, he's going to come up here and he's going to close this message on the presence of God or how to have integrity or
That's
Matthew
crazy.
25. And then I would go up there and I would just, bam, kill the last point.
I've actually never seen that happen. Like, I've never seen that style.
That's
crazy.
He was a really good preacher, but he knew I was a really good preacher. And so he just made space for me to have my gifting. So I'm doing that all at 15 years old.
Okay.
So I've been preaching
since 15.
So
have you stopped
16 years.
Then? Or have you preached the whole time?
I don't think there was ever a time in my life longer than 5 or 6 months that I wasn't preaching messages.
I feel that, man. Me
Either
too.
small groups,
or something,
or large
stage platform.
large stage. And I've been a lot like, and that stuff doesn't matter
for sure,
the numbers wise, but I've been on large stages. I've been in the rooms of 10.
Yeah.
So I really started at 15.
Wow.
So 16 years of preaching, loving the church, learning church, growing in my own calling development. And then I've been here at now Home Church going on 11 years.
Wow.
So I got hired at 20
years. So 20 years old, you got hired. You've been here
Started
since
as
then.
youth pastor.
How old are you right now?
31.
31. Glory to God,
31.
man.
Yeah,
Praise
man.
God. You look 18, bro.
Oh, thanks, bro.
You look 18.
Thanks.
I pray the Lord blessing you with that, you know, some of that favor
I think
on
so.
you,
And
man.
me and my wife, it was funny
so
when we
cool.
first had our baby, we'd walk around the mall. Because imagine what I looked like then when I was 23,
Yeah.
24,
Oh my
when I had
God,
my first
bro.
kid. I
You
really
look
looked like
8.
16. Bro, real talk. And so
look
she
8.
looks younger than me.
Yeah.
And
She does look young. She does look young. You're
does.
right.
She does.
Whoa.
So she's 30. I'm 31.
Come on.
I think you're being nice.
30? No,
Yeah.
I'm not even joking, bro. I really did.
she
I
looks
thought
like-
she was at least like 24, 25. Really?
I
She's
think I
30.
look 25 to 27
Yeah.
probably. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm being nice to myself.
No,
But
I'd agree.
I think I look in my 20s.
Yeah.
I look late 20s. I think currently today she looks early 20s. So imagine both of us at 23 walking around with the kid at the mall.
Oh my
They
God.
probably thought we were on 16 and pregnant.
Yeah,
bro. I'm just saying.
Or like babysitting. Like she's babysitting. You're her boyfriend pulling up for the babysitting. Wow, man, that's crazy.
So been at church
and has
for
she
11
been in
years.
ministry her whole life? Did she come in
loved the
only
church
during
her
you?
whole
Like,
life.
what's going on? Tell me a little
Yeah,
bit
so
about
she has
that.
her master's in educational leadership. She actually never thought she was going to work at the church. Like we're definitely not the couple where she's pastor, I'm pastor. I'm very much pastor. She definitely has her own calling.
Yes.
I think she has fallen in love with building the local church in this season.
Yeah,
So she's
my
probably going to do
wife
that a little
is like that,
longer.
yeah.
But that's not her. No, she's called to.
Wow. You know, it's so important actually to understand that. Like I know it sounds simple and you know
that's a big deal.
But bro, you don't understand how many, or I'm sure you do actually, how many pastors' wives, or let me put it like this, how many matrimonies, ministry matrimonies are suffering, or they're confused, and there's even some, it leads to arguments because they don't understand. You don't both have to be called to this specific thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I think every person has a calling.
Yes.
I think every marriage has a calling because Jesus says to become one.
Yes, 100%.
So my calling is not the same as my marriage's calling. My calling is not the same as my wife's calling. When we both get married, we merge, and now we have a specific calling together.
And then that goes even into your kids now.
And then
you have kids, yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
How many
and then they
kids?
have a calling. I have two.
2 kids, bro.
Yeah, I
Come
got a little
on,
guy
man.
named Zadok, and I got a daughter named Psalm. Pray for me.
Wow.
She's crazy.
Wow.
But
wow. How old?
7, and she's about to turn 2.
7 and 2. Okay, well that's good space though.
It's good space.
That's good
She's
space.
fun.
Yeah.
And he's great, and
that's
they're awesome. But
very cool.
Yeah, the idea of there's different callings.
Yeah.
I think the assumption is that when we get married, my calling needs to become her calling. No. She has her unique calling.
Yes.
And actually, what pastors, especially men, let me
Please
highlight
please.
some of the men, because y'all need to chill out. Because you think your wife's job is to make your dream come true. Especially if I could just even speak a little deeper in the probably for the Hispanic context, right? Come on,
speak on it.
So it's like I married you to support me.
Yes.
And it's like, actually, no, Ephesians says Christ died for the church. That's how you're supposed to love your wife. So actually my job is to make my wife's dream come true. So when we got married, her first dream was she wanted to get her master's.
Wow.
So I chose not to go to school.
Really?
And I put her through school.
Yeah.
Because I knew how she was going to support me.
Wow.
But as the husband, my responsibility is to fuel her calling. And then her responsibility is probably also to do the same. But if the assumption is our both responsibilities just to do my calling, like it's just one-sided, that's where bitterness really sets in. And then once your family grows and the kids leave the house, now your wife's like, okay, I've been doing this for 20 years and my life was obsessed by an individual who I'm married to. And I'm empty on the inside.
I tell guys all the time, don't make your girlfriends you. Stop trying to make them you. She's her, and that's a great thing. I'm glad I didn't marry me. I'm so glad I didn't. I'm sure you're glad you didn't marry you.
So in talking we're talking longevity.
Of course.
That's totally part of it. Like who you marry. We'll get to questions in a second. But I'm just so grateful for my wife because I've been able to support the dream of her heart. And then vice versa. She's been able to support the dream of my heart. And so the dream of her heart hasn't been, let's like be a pastor. She never wanted to be a pastor. She's still not a pastor. She never wanted to work at a church, but she loves what we're doing. But at any minute, if she's like, I'm out, she's out. She never signed up for this with this unnecessary responsibility that she's this pastor wife that has to do more than anyone else. And that's so unhealthy.
And that's prevalent so in I think, like you said, in the Hispanic community, it's super prevalent. Like pastoras, they have to preach. They have to, that's the image,
she doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
She doesn't preach. I remember a couple one time telling me she was crying one day because she tried so long to learn how to play keys. Oh, man. And she couldn't play keys. She just wasn't musically gifted.
Wasn't her thing.
And she really thought, well, I'm marrying a pastor one day. So if I don't know how to play keys, I don't know if I'll ever marry a pastor. Like that was the burden that we have unnecessarily defaulted on young women because of this thing with ministry that's so toxic. Now, on the other side, that doesn't give my wife permission to wild out and be this horrible person. Because there's also wives out there that some of the reason why your husband can't go to the next level is because your attitude sucks.
For sure.
Right?
And it's hindering.
We all know that, Hermana. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And we don't want to talk about it, but let's talk about it.
That's what it is,
But her job is not to reflect me because I'm a pastor. Her job is to reflect me because I'm a man of God and I'm a person who loves Jesus and she loves Jesus. So she should act like someone who loves Jesus.
And she's your ministry first, before the church, before anything else. That's your ministry
So
first.
I heard it like this one day, and I think this best describes it. I think any relationship, they're either going to be a covering or they're going to be a cap. Is your wife a covering?
Yeah.
Or is she a cap?
Wow. And you know, to someone who doesn't know how to discern that, they're like, well, it's the same thing. No, it's not. It's completely different.
And if it's a cap,
that's it.
Any relationship that's a cap, will then eventually cap you, and you'll feel it's like a soda can, and you're just shooken up because you're gonna get shooken
so
up.
True. Yeah, it's so true.
A covering, like an umbrella, if the soda can gets shooken up and it opens, it's not gonna go all over the place. It's but if it's a cap. And I forgot who said it. I wish I could give credit, but I forgot who said it. But someone way better and smarter than me, right?
Yeah.
But if it's a cap, that pressure will just build,
until
and then
explodes,
it's everywhere,
shatters everything.
And no wonder you didn't make it past year 12.
And it doesn't just affect you, but it affects even her and then the kids and then you know that's where you get all the unfortunate things that we see. I think today in our country specifically, in it's sad sometimes when you look at the news, from pastors. You would love to see different things, but a lot of times it's negative, and many times it's because of simple things like that. If we were just to be able to discern in certain moments and for certain people, what to do. Now, I love that that you brought that up. I love that you found your covering. That's awesome. Shout out her. For covering you and being right there by your side. And it is a you said it. It is a family calling and
totally
and for sure. I love that. I love to hear that my friend that you've found that person. On that route. Okay. How long have you been married?
So I'm going on 10 years this year.
Can you tell just really quick,
Sure.
the story of so the first time I heard you preach.
Okay.
I had never heard anyone preach like this.
Really? Okay.
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't remember what it was on.
Where was it?
It was at the church I grew up at, Tabernáculo Cristiano. You said something like, it was a youth service. So what I loved about you is you didn't come in like,
was it the one by the Shark Stadium?
No.
What church did you grow up at again?
Tabernáculo Cristiano.
In San Jose?
San Jose, yeah.
Was
the
it
one
a
by the Shark
rally?
Stadium is my old church. Is like
right, that was where the old
but that's
building.
not where I grew up. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it was a rally. It was a sectional rally.
It was a rally.
Yeah, like deep in like East Side, like San Jose.
Okay.
It is East Side, right? East Side, yeah.
How old was I?
Yeah. Bro, I don't remember. I don't even remember how old I was, but let me tell you what I do remember.
How old are you?
So I'm 27. I'm turning 28 this year.
So you must have been like a young adult.
Bro, yeah.
Because the last time I did a rally in San Jose.
It was a while ago. It was
in 2016.
It was years ago, bro.
Like 7-8 years.
Let me tell you what I remember, okay? I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't even remember how old I was, but let me tell you, you were just the way that you were preaching was like the the language, everything. It was someone young talking to young people.
For sure.
So it definitely connected, right? I think up until maybe that moment, we hadn't heard anyone like that in our section, at least like preach to us like
That's
that.
fun.
And so, you were saying things like something like, at the time, I think there was like a Fetty Wap song that was out and you were making like references to that. It was so awesome, bro. Like, like Jesus had a Glock in his Rari or something. I don't know. Something like something like that. Yeah.
I
know what I'm
remember
talking about?
I do because that night actually surprisingly was so fun. And I'm me. So that was one thing I learned early on is if you're not you, like Jesus can't build on fake. Jesus can't.
And that's what I love about you, bro. You're just you.
I had to learn how to be aggressively me.
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't me, unapologetically me,
good.
then, and I was very insecure growing up. And that's a little bit about my background and my story. Still insecure to this day, still walking through things. So even my wife will, when I'm walking through moments where I'm lacking confidence or she's feeling a sense of insecurity, which to someone you've known me from the outside,
for sure,
probably never thought but everyone does. She will like address it because that's not who I am. So that season in particular,
you remember that? Yeah,
walking through real intentional, like seasons of just being myself. So I walk into this old school church,
which has brought you here.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So I walk into this old school church and I'm like, I know the message because it's one of my messages I used to take on the road. It was called "Don't Believe Me, Just Watch." It's a Bruno Mars song. And it's the whole idea of Peter walking on water and how the church.
That's where I wanted to get to. That's where I want to get to. So you talked about your wife, about when you met your wife, and how I do remember this. Okay. You said you were like, I think either to prove to her or that you can tell me the story, but you tried to walk on water. Yeah, you tried to walk on water. Tell me about that really quick. Tell me about that.
Well, the idea was I didn't. I wanted to. It didn't work. I'm not Jesus.
I know. Tell me about that.
But where it started was, so you might know him is Dan Vera out in San Jose.
I do know Dan Vera.
So Dan Vera was
I've translated for
my wife's pastor growing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's the church we grew up at.
Okay.
So not CWC San Jose, but CWC Manteca. Anyways, so anyways. This guy who's a legend, his name's Pastor Dan. I just connected because I thought you might know him.
Yep.
Me and my wife started dating at 16, 15. Dan Vera comes to a conference and he sees my wife. And so his daughter and my wife were really good friends.
Okay, got it.
So the story goes that he goes up to her and he goes, "Mia, who's this guy? Who's this guy you're dating? Who's this guy?" And she goes, "Oh, it's my boyfriend." Yeah. And, I think he just loves her, but he's also trying to, his Dan Vera way, which is great. Sure. Yeah, and he knows the story. I've shared the story in front of people. Totally. Yeah. He goes, well, if he better date you, he better be able to walk on water. And I really loved Jesus as a teenager. So my wife's reply was, "Pastor Dan, if there's anyone that can walk on water, I think Chris. He can."
No way, yo, come on.
And so he laughed and was like, "Okay, sounds good." And then we brought him to preach.
For sure.
And so I think that's the story I shared. And then when I was a teenager,
there was like a pool
multiple moments.
There was like a pool involved.
And I had my phone in my pocket.
Yep.
Yeah. And they weren't waterproof
back then.
Yeah, and it was not, bro. It wasn't like the iPhones now. I was like, I'm gonna put my phone in my pocket. I had my clothes on. And me and a couple homies at a prayer meeting at the house were like, "Let's walk on water."
Come on.
Yeah. But I do remember saying a lot of like Drake references.
I remember that, bro.
Fetty Wap because I knew the room was very old school.
And we were in Eastside San Jose, bro. So we all knew exactly what we were talking about.
But I know that we know that everyone is listening
knows.
to music they're not supposed to.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So let me connect on a relational level. Let me just make a couple jokes. And I remember, I think I said a Drake joke. It was just a song reference.
Sure.
I don't even think it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
It was I maybe said like 0 to 100 or
something like that,
something
right?
dumb.
Yeah.
But because they knew they're probably not supposed to listen to that stuff, and I said it on a pulpit,
like Santo.
The room, dude,
it was dead. I remember.
And then the room erupted, and they thought it was so funny.
It was crazy.
And I had the room the whole, and then I think you remember altar call hit, and it was like,
I was just about to say it. Altar call was full. Altar call was full that night.
It was so crazy.
Yeah. So for all you young preachers out there, just reference Drake. No, I'm just kidding. Don't take that from this. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure, but I think I was just trying to be me. And I think I made a comment like, "Look, I'm not saying you can listen to secular music
for sure,
but it was like this
disclosure
inside thing,
yeah,
I wasn't approving it, but it was just it was just this.
You're
Yeah, it was
being
a fun
real.
day.
You're being real, and that's lacking.
And you could
a lot
listen to that
today.
like at the grocery store.
For
Like
sure.
I wasn't
Exactly.
saying things that were deep
Bro,
dives.
I've heard it in at youth conferences in the lobby. So
that's a little weird.
That's what I'm saying. To me, that was a little much.
It's a little much.
Yeah, exactly. But I have heard it.
But yeah, I'm just trying to speak the language of a generation.
Specifically, it was
that would
God's plan.
understand.
That's what it was.
Oh, that's not.
So they were kind of like,
Yeah.
they're trying
If
to
it's
play.
just
They're trying to play on the.
If it's all the lyrics,
he said
then maybe no.
It says God, right? So like, yeah.
Okay. But if it's just the beat, I guess. I'm teach their own. Like, look, convictions, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's really
No,
funny.
bro.
So that's the first
I
time
remember
you
that.
heard me preach.
That's the first time I heard you
was
preach.
the idea like,
Yeah.
you can do that?
Yeah, I was like, whoa. Like,
And you can do
I
that
had never,
here.
I was like, I've never heard that.
Because maybe other people did it
for
everywhere else, but...
Well, I had never been exposed to that before.
Really?
Yeah. I grew up, so we were talking a little off the pot. I grew up Benny Hinn.
Okay,
That's why Noah's preacher.
Got it.
Like I grew up in him.
How
right?
great thou art.
Yeah. So and it's cool, right?
So here comes, and I think even the outfit that day was fire.
You were wearing a leather jacket, I think.
I still have that leather jacket.
Come on, man. Come on.
That's my jacket
for sure.
And I came in with.
It's got the anointing on it now. Yeah.
Bro,
you got to pass that mantle on to your next 20-year-old guy.
No.
You got to give him that.
Well, my goal is if my son becomes a preacher,
okay.
He's getting the leather jacket.
Good.
Yeah, that's his leather jacket.
Elisha.
It
throw
is.
the mantle on. That's so cool.
I already have it planned because I can't fit in no more. I can't wait. So you know what I'm saying?
Different seasons, bro. Different seasons.
I
Okay.
can't wear it.
That's good.
That's how I know I'm getting too fat. Is I can't fit in the leather jacket, man. But yeah, it's
that's awesome, man.
I do remember that day because it was so the dichotomy, the tension of this isn't what they're used to. But man, how they responded to the gospel. And that message wasn't like an easy message. That message was, I mean, I know because I preach it a lot, but I know some of the things I was saying was like, give your whole life to follow Jesus. Get out of the boat. You know, everyone has a walk on water message, but the idea of let Christianity be about your life, not just what you say. And I think that room really responded because I'm also fiery on the other side. So I'm a merger
it's a good
of
mix.
A little funny, but then we're definitely more on the fiery side at times. And
as you you go through different seasons, and I was just I took two buddies of mine out one time to a church when I preached at a church, and they knew me from school. I was in high school, so I took them. I was like, "Yo, come with me. I'm preaching this thing." It was awesome, and they were like, "Whoa, like we've never seen you like in that setting, like on a stage and everything, right?" And so that was kind of my first ever experience of like. Oh yeah, like people see me a certain way, but then on the stage a different way.
Totally.
But I bring that up because recently I took my worship director and my community outreach director with me to a speaking engagement at another church.
Yeah.
And I had preached at our church that Sunday, and then Sunday night I preached at this other church. So they saw both sermons and they were like, "Yo, it's completely different." And I told them, I said, "Look, the thing is that." You got to know your audience.
Sure.
and two, one thing that I love, my Bible hero apart from Jesus is the Apostle Paul.
Right.
He says, to the Jews, I was a Jew. To the Romans, I'm a Roman. So he's able to morph into, the gospel doesn't change, but the delivery, how he knows how to communicate better, right? So if I walk into a church, of people that are 60 and up, I'm not going to preach the same way that if I walk into a room that's a bunch of high school kids, right?
Absolutely.
And so, communication is an art. I think you're great at that, so I admire that about you. And I love that we brought up the walking on water thing because what we do every Sunday is really just as crazy as walking on water.
Absolutely.
To come into a building and say, okay, I'm going to. We know as humans we're not enough. The Lord is through us, and we're doing and sharing what we can is in our humanity and in our abilities, and the Lord does the rest. I mean that's an impossible task. Like it's walking on water, impossible, and the Lord shows up every week.
And
to
even
do
to
that.
just think about it, like. It's not even just the preaching.
Yeah.
It's, okay, we're going to get a bunch of musicians up there.
Think about,
probably never went to school. They're going to sing songs they just learned on Thursday. It's going to be chords and charts that aren't better than anything in Hollywood.
Yep.
Like, okay, let's be real. Let's call a spade a spade. Our worship could be good, but compared to everyone else that's doing music, most churches' worships is not good.
My best friend said, because he's on worship, he's like, I sometimes feel like I'm just a glorified cover band.
Right? So then you have that.
Yeah.
You have a guy talking out of a book.
Yes.
For 30 minutes.
Yes.
That a lot of people don't
sometimes 45 if he goes over.
But 30, 45. But and some people don't believe it's truth.
Yeah.
You have people that get there at 7 a.m. to make coffee. That's probably not even the best tasting coffee.
Not at Vine Church though.
Right. You got good coffee? Okay, good. We have decent coffee too, but I'm just saying, right? It's not Blue Bottle.
No, for sure.
It's not Ritual.
For sure.
They're setting up chairs. They're wearing T-shirts. We're not Nordstrom. We're not the fashion designers of the world. And then you have people that show up every Sunday to take care of kids that aren't their own. And then either 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 people fill it, or 100, 200 or 500 or 1,000 fill these buildings that we don't pay for. That people have to give money to pay for.
Yeah.
Like, bro, like we don't sell tires. We don't sell merch. We don't sell stuff. And if we sell merch, we're just trying to cut the cost of the t-shirt. We're not making money. But here's the kicker. Is that you have all that on the outside perspective. It looks like this weird social club organization that's just spinning their wheels. But then you get in the room and the Holy Ghost shows up. And you're telling me that someone who's about to get divorced isn't going to get divorced anymore because
or someone who's
Sunday?
about to kill themselves,
or someone's about to kill themselves, or someone who's been an addict for 20 years, goes home and empties the bottles, or pours their pills, and transforms for the rest of their life, and that's it.
That's what it's
and
about.
That's what the world doesn't understand until you walk in the room and you experience it. And yes,
and he has to be.
It's
there,
what the
right?
disciples saw Peter because the disciples are seeing Peter. And they could have got out the boat too. But every Sunday is a walking on water moment. Because if you're not walking on water, you're just in the boat, and everyone's used to being in a boat.
Exactly.
The miracle is not that people are, right? Everyone could be in a boat. The miracle is that it's a human with Jesus on water as well.
And sometimes that concept, us in our humanity knowing, okay, I'm doing something that I'm not qualified to do, I'm not enough to do, it can be taxing on somebody, it can be weighing on somebody, which perfectly leads me into my question and really the topic of today's conversation. Ministry is a calling. I believe that.
Totally.
I believe that you have to be called for this.
Absolutely.
If you just think like, oh, this is going to be a cool little thing, that don't try it. Don't do it. I tell people, I would not recommend somebody in their right mind to become a pastor.
No.
Don't do it. It's literally, you're going to sacrifice your life and put everyone on top of you. People are going to criticize you whether you do it right or you do it wrong, like whatever, right?
And the bigger it gets, the more complicated it is.
Exactly. As it scales, it doesn't get easier. It gets even harder, right? The problems are bigger. Okay. So now as somebody who has been in ministry since 15 years old, okay, that's been preaching, their whole life, somebody who's now a lead pastor, here at Home Church in Lathrop. How do you do it?
How do I do it?
Let me phrase it like this. Let me phrase it like this, okay?
Because I want to get some practicals to the people watching.
Let me phrase it like this. Okay. Ministry, in order for it to be a long time thing, in order for us to be able to hear, good and faithful servant, you've been faithful. Okay, you were faithful. There are things that happen in ministry in our own personal lives. There are things that happen in ministry in the church that will weigh you and tie you down. Okay.
Right.
Let's go practical first. Then I want to get to the spiritual side because it's super important. But I want to get to the practical first.
Right.
What are practical things that you do, Pastor Chris Scoz, okay, in your own time that maybe people don't know, maybe you're or maybe they do, maybe you're very open with them. But what do you do to stay healthy, to stay sane? Right before I let you speak, the Bible says, it specifically talks about the prophet Elijah, right? I love this. He brings fire down from heaven. This is an incredible task.
Right.
You keep reading a couple more verses, and he's like, God, would you just kill me? Like, I want to die. God, would you just kill me? It's like, bro, you just brought fire down from heaven. Now you want to die. But this is so cool. This is what God tells him to do. He says, sleep, and then he gives him food. He's like, eat.
Right.
And this is what I get from it, okay? This is what Pastor gets from it. This is what I get. A lot of times it's not a demon. A lot of times it's not a spiritual attack. You just need to eat, bro. You need to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have the powerful. You need to take a nap, bro. So what are the practical things that you do to stay healthy in ministry?
Yeah, that's so good. And I put a cough drop in the mouth just because I'm a little sore throat. I want to make sure you can hear me.
So cough drops, number one.
Cough drop. There we go. If you're a preacher,
cough drops.
Cough drops.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Especially if you're preaching 3-4 services on a weekend. Man, there's so much that let me try to unpack some things that I think could help the person, whether they're in ministry as a pastor or they're a volunteer every week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Break it
so I believe everybody, there's 5 areas of your life.
Yeah.
That
I'm going to jot these down, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, let's do it and throw it in the pod, throw it in the notes, make it in the clips. and I preach about this pretty often. One of the things I feel really called to communicate and talked about, I really feel there's a gift and a grace for healing on my life. I think there's also a gift and a grace for healing here at Home Church. My spiritual father, Pastor Eric Baca, he also has a grace for healing. Amen. It looks a little different.
Shout out Pastor Eric.
Oh yeah, he's a man. So one of the things that's really important is this idea of, and this is going to sound very new agey, but don't hear it as a new age term. It's holistic healing, meaning all of you is healthy. So one, this is a theological thought. I'm a trichotomist. I'm not a dichotomist. I'm a trichotomist, meaning I believe in body, soul, and spirit. That's really important.
So good.
Some people believe just in body and spirit. I believe in body, soul, and spirit. Of
course.
And the reason why, I think it's scriptural. And I think there's so much theology in it. I think in our denomination, we're all trichotomists as well. So it's pretty easy. But for someone that's not watching, but the idea is your spirit can be healthy. But your soul and your body can't.
Yeah, for sure.
And so whatever's unhealthy will be the detour or the detriment to your calling.
It's like in the gym. If you only hit chest, but you don't work legs,
absolutely,
bro, your body is going to be unbalanced. Of course, 100%.
Yeah, bro, you're looking like a turkey. Bro.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then let me break that down a little more. I believe out of the out of the three, right, body, soul, and spirit, there's 5 areas of your life that need to stay healthy always. This is just how I've broken it down with studies I've done and preaching and teaching. Some people have 7, some people have 8. I'm just going to do 5. Okay. Your spirit needs to be healthy, which is your direct correlation between you and Jesus, right? Worship, prayer, life,
Come on.
Your intellect needs to be healthy. Your mind. Your emotions need to be happy. That's where pastors actually lose it the most. They lack emotional capacity. Your relationships need to be healthy. And your physicality, your body needs to be healthy. Now, some people throw in finance in there as 6, but I'm going to throw finance in 5 because I believe that's interconnected. Okay. So I'm going to throw them again one more time. Spirit, mind, emotions, relationships, body. Okay. So here at our church, for example, and when I talk to people, especially pastors, here's what the lie is, that we believe they're compartmentalized.
Oh, wow. Like they don't talk to each other.
They're completely interconnected. Because how many know when you have a stressful, emotional day at work,
for sure,
you start eating garbage food, right? Then you're physically tired. Or you're having relationship problems in your marriage that make you emotionally unstable, and now you don't want to pray.
For sure.
Okay. For sure. On the opposite, when you do healthy things, when you work out, for some reason you want to read your Bible more that day, and you're not emotionally as stressed out as you could be.
For sure.
So they are all interconnected.
They are. I believe in it 100%.
So
100%.
Your question, just to go back to the original question.
What do you do on a practical side? We'll talk spiritual in a second.
Right.
But just practical. No.
But that's why I'm bringing it up.
Do you what do you do?
What I would say is you need to find something in each of those 5 to build those daily. Because that's your infrastructure. Think of it as a home.
That's good.
And we've been on this with our series at church, the whole analogy of home. But let's use vine as well.
Yeah.
Think of it as a vine.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The only way a vine grows, what's the thing that goes on the back of a vine again? What's the structure piece? The truss or the...
I don't know the term for it. I know what you're talking about.
But you see a vine that's growing or like a wall.
It needs something to go up on. Otherwise, it breaks off. Yeah,
so I would say in our church setting home, it's what you need is a foundation and you need the structure.
For sure.
You need the walls. You need the beams.
Yeah.
Same thing with the vine. I'm going to use your church context. You need an infrastructure.
For sure.
You need to intentionally build your infrastructure of your life as a leader. Because if you don't, no one else will. So... you need to hit every area of your life. Now, sometimes you're falling off a little and you need to get back in it.
Yeah.
So I would hit the 5. And so here are the practicals for me. So let's start spirit. Just not to get super spiritual, obviously prayer, word, whatever. Here's the thing that is most detrimental to my spiritual and health is when I allow secret sin in my life and I don't confront it. So what I do is you need to be self-aware. So here's the first thing on how to be healthy. Because that's your question, right? How to be healthy. You need to identify your secret sin.
Because in order for you to do ministry long term, you got to be healthy.
Absolutely.
You have to be.
Yeah. Because the thing that's going to kill your
physically,
spirit is sin.
Spiritually, everything.
It's not even going to be people, it's sin. It's when it's your own toxic poison to yourself.
For sure.
So what's that sin that you struggle with? Identify it.
So secrets.
And create accountability for it.
Very good.
So for me, my whole life, that's been the area of pornography. I think that's most men.
Yes.
Right? I don't struggle with drinking. I don't struggle with drugs. I'm not going to go sleep around on my wife. And so I'm very open with it.
Yes.
I'm open with it because I'd rather have people know I struggle and don't do it then everyone thinks I don't struggle and I'm 100%. Perfect and I do it behind everyone's back.
Yeah.
So that means...
And whatever happens really in the dark, eventually, like...
Yeah, bro. That's what Jesus says.
Yes, of course.
So that means locked iPhones.
Yeah.
That means blocked computers. Yeah. That means my wife has every password to everything. That means I'm not at home alone by myself with something that I can access the internet.
Of course.
So everyone has a thing they struggle with.
Set yourself up for
success. I'm just giving you mine.
For sure.
Because I don't have no problem talking about mine. But what's yours? Anger, addiction, rage, security, pride. Okay. What do you need to do to have barriers and guards and boundaries and accountability to protect your spirit?
Yeah.
Okay. Relationships. Who's over you?
Yeah.
Who's next to you? Who's under you?
Oh, for sure.
Easy money.
For sure.
That's a sermon for another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Emotions.
Yeah.
That one's probably the hardest for pastors.
Yeah.
But the idea of, are you emotionally unhealthy? Here's how you know you're emotionally unhealthy.
Tell them.
Is when something goes wrong that's not your fault and like you blame yourself.
Wow.
Here's another one. Something's happening where there's an overwhelming situation in someone's relationship and you had a hard, heavy emotional pastor day and your wife gets the worst of you instead of the best of you because you don't know how to pause and love on your kids because you emptied yourself out emotionally for everyone else who at the end of it, who even knows if their marriage is going to make it.
Wow.
And that's real because you've seen that with your dad your whole life and now you're doing, right?
100%.
So are you emotionally healthy? What are the emotional? And there's ways to get healthy, but let's just identify that. You need to be emotionally healthy, relationally healthy, spiritually healthy, your mind, intellect. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Your thought patterns.
Yeah.
I've been through a season recently where I have been walking through conversations in my head that I should not be having.
And that's why the Apostle Paul says we got to renew our minds.
Totally.
Constantly. Renew them. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
It's an actual practical thing.
And then physically, which I think is totally connected to all this.
For sure.
Is you got to work out, bro.
What do you do, bro? What's your regimen,
I've been falling off.
Come on,
a prodigal that needs to come back home.
Come on. Come back to the Father.
But recently it's just been running.
Okay, good, bro.
Yeah,
good,
I need to get back on it. I hurt my foot in November, so that was hard.
Yeah.
And then just the season of we were changing the name and things. But yeah, bro, you need to move. You need to get. So for me, even right now, I'm not working out, but like get out of the house.
Yes. I
stuff like that. But funny. Like you gotta. If you just hit those areas and everyone's area is specific, just start there.
Yeah.
And I bet that would really help you.
You got to acknowledge them, right?
Yeah, let's just start with real. Let's just start with the self-awareness.
Yeah.
I'm physically unhealthy.
Exactly. There you go. Sure.
Right? I'm emotionally unhealthy. I'm relationally healthy. I have no friends. Why do all my friends leave me? Yeah. Well, it's because you're kind of a mess.
Yeah.
And you're not, right? Well, I'm spiritually unhealthy. Yeah. Right? You could serve like crazy, but your spirit is dead on the inside.
Come on.
Things like that, right? Yeah. Like, let's just start there.
Last year, the Lord spoke to me, and it was specific. And my church knows this. I preached on this. I talk about this a lot. But there's a difference between serving God and walking with the Lord. It's two different things, right? And so you could be serving all you want, but if you're not walking with God,
that's good. That's a good point.
For sure. No, it changed my life.
Can I steal it for Sunday?
Of course, 100%. Cool. But so you mentioned, the physical, and I think that's really important because I think for ministers, especially those that have been in it for a while.
Yeah. So now we're talking pastors specifically.
Yeah. Okay. So they know that. It's like, okay, like the spiritual. But a lot of times,
bro.
The physical, bro. Yeah. No, the physical, like a lot of times they don't. And so, being, making sure you're eating right.
Totally.
You would think it doesn't, but it really does. It plays a big role. I have a rule for me.
Because it all affects.
Yes. I have a rule for me. I don't, so every time I preach, I fast. It's not just a spiritual thing. It's also a physical thing. Like I feel better.
Detox,
I feel better. Like if I'm loose, if I'm empty, if I just had an in and out, bro,
right.
3x3 or a 4x4, and I gotta step on stage and bring fire down, bro. I don't think I can.
I don't eat in the mornings either before I preach or in the evenings when I preach at conferences or events. Yeah.
We just got done doing our 21-day fast, and we did the Daniel fast, style fast. So it was all just things from the ground, bro. So I told my wife, I was like, because she eats like that natural. So for her it was easy, right? But for me,
that was a normal Tuesday.
It was normal for her, normal 21 days, right? But for me, it was hard because I love me, burgers. I love meat, right?
Yeah, bro.
But I really did feel sharp. After the end of the 21, like I felt sharp, I feel good, like more energy, and it's so interesting because we tend to, especially let me just speak Pentecostal, especially in the Pentecostal movement, we tend to over spiritualize a lot of things that can be tackled. Now, there's the other side where it's like, no, there's no spirits, but the Word of God tells us that our fight is not against flesh or blood. There are spirits in there. We know that, but there are some things like, bro, you just gotta change your diet.
Yeah,
bro, you just
gotta get out the house.
You should just probably sleep another hour. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, so
sleep's a big one for me. I've never struggled with that, but some people
struggle with that. I'm bad at that.
Yeah, bro,
I go to bed at like 5 a.m.
No, I could sleep, bro.
Oh no, I could, but I don't. That's my problem.
I shut it down.
Yeah, that's good, bro. That's good.
That's actually a big sign for me. If I am losing sleep, can I ask you? I don't know if this is too vulnerable. Have you ever had church moments now where they keep you up at night?
Oh, bro, I've talked about this.
Okay.
Yes. My very first year, I thought. So I went and I was like, I'm going to be the cool pastor.
Sure.
I'm going to be chill with everybody. Everyone's going to call me bro. It's just going to be chill. That did not work. Okay, that did not work. Okay. And I actually ended up losing a friendship due to that because they just saw me as a friend. And when it came time for me to be their pastor, it didn't work anymore. And so that whole season messed me up. I wasn't sleeping. And I talked to my father.
And there's sometimes where you get a bad night's sleep. And
sure. No. But this was this messed me up. This messed me up.
Yeah.
I talked to my father and I said, how do you do it? Like, he's been in ministry for years. I was like, how do you do it? And he told me something so simple, but it changed everything for me. He said, the ministry is not yours. It's the Lord's.
Right.
So why are you worrying about it?
Right.
And it just clicked in my mind. I was like,
yeah, we're not the overall shepherd.
My God. Yeah.
So I think actually a sign of emotional unhealthiness and physical unhealthiness is the ability to not sleep and trust in God.
Oh, for sure.
Because that means that person has way more authority in my life than they should.
Of course.
And permission. Sometimes you just got to learn that the hard way.
Yes.
I've never struggled with that. I struggle with all sorts of other things.
Sure.
But sleep's a big one.
Pastor Angel Menchaca, which I'm sure you know him.
Oh, yeah.
He's cool with
He's the first
with Pastor
guy
Dan.
who ever let me preach at a church on Sunday.
No way. I'm speaking at his church later this year. And then I'm also speaking to his worship team next Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm
like
gonna be
full on
Zoom.
service, guest preacher. Of course, I preached at my home church first, but outside of my home church.
No, he's awesome.
Angel Menchaca.
Shout out Pastor Angel. We'll have him on the pod. He's going to be at our conference later this year.
Great.
So we're going to make sure he's on the pod during that weekend.
Love him.
But I talked to him about that also. He was another person that I reached out to and talked to him about that. And he told me, too, he had a very similar experience as mine. And he said, it took just one day, I think he was in his front lawn and he was like, just thinking about this person. And he was like, you know what? I have to do something physical to let this go. So he said, he like stood up and he said, God, like out loud, he was like, God, I give this person over to you.
Bro,
like, I give this person. And he said after that it was, and so I did that, and bro, it changed.
You gotta get the ansias, the poison out.
Of course.
So I think that's just so if you're struggling with that, for example, it doesn't mean you're a horrible person.
No,
it just means you're normal.
It means you're human.
Yeah.
It means you're human.
You just gotta know, okay, but that's also not normal either, in the sense of you want to keep that.
You don't
going
want to be there forever.
Because bro, you should be able to sleep. And so good sleep, physical, and then for me it's probably more the exercise side than the sleep side and the diet side.
I'll get you.
Right. But
we gotta work out together, bro.
I know, bro. We need to do it. But it's also just getting out the house, building that habit. But I think the lie could be, well, as long as I'm praying enough, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, they are all interconnected, and we have to be open and honest that we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't make it to the end. I heard this stat the other day, which I think you've heard as well, which is crazy to me. 1 out of every 10 people who starts in ministry does not end in ministry, does not retire as a pastor. 1 out of 10. Let's say that's for clickbait.
Yeah.
Let's just say that's aggressive. Okay, let's just triple it just to be nice.
Yeah.
Because maybe they surveyed the wrong people. 3 out of 10 still not a good number. 5 out of 10 still not a good number.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because they're unhealthy. And here's why health is such a conviction of mine.
Yeah.
Is because if you are unhealthy, you will lead your people unhealthy. So in the Old Testament, God only accepted offerings when the fat was burnt.
Yes.
Right? Like you read about it in Leviticus, deep dive into Leviticus, the priest would burn the fat off in one altar and then offer the meat at a different altar. When you're not healthy, you are not giving God your best, but yet you expect God to give you his best every single time.
Come on, man. Oh,
your people don't deserve an unhealthy leader.
They
don't.
Good.
They don't. And leadership is self-leadership more than it is organizational and relational leadership.
And even just to go deeper into that, right? Like the priest that went in to offer to the Lord, he had to be healthy. He had to be right before the Lord.
Otherwise,
he died, right?
Shake it 7 times.
I wonder how many of us would be dead on a Sunday, right?
If they shook the bell 7 times and if 7 times they didn't shake the bell back, whoop,
you got to
pull the rope under the curtain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And and the stuff that killed the priests in the Old Testament is the breath and the wind that we breathe in on Sundays from the Holy Ghost.
Come on.
Today.
Come on.
Because now we have been through a new veil, which is the veil of the cross, which is who Jesus is and all that, right? So we're going to act like it's not a big deal. And And so I actually think half of the game is taking care of yourself.
It is. It really is.
But then not buying into self-help consumerism, which is Western culture understanding, which is also
you're
wrong.
so true. I used an illustration one time in a sermon that I did at some conference. I think it was a youth conference. But see, in this cup, right, I have water in here. Sure. And so you have a cup right there. If I were to pour this into you, right, I can do that because I have something in here. Yeah. But once I run out of this and I'm just doing this motion, which is sometimes what we're doing is we're just doing the motion of preaching, the motion of...
But there's nothing there.
But there's nothing inside.
No substance.
And so it's important that we on our own, right, that's something I had to learn very early on in my ministry. I mean, I've been in ministry, bro, my whole life. And so very early on, I had to learn, I have to feed myself because that's super important.
Totally.
Right? Like, I mean, and when you're new in ministry, I mean, not even ministry. When you're just new to the faith,
you're on adrenaline, bro.
Yeah,
bro.
You're like, woo,
anointing and adrenaline, double
A's
all day long.
That adrenaline will leave. And was it just emotion, or is it really a calling? And I think that's where we're how you're able to deal with that behind closed doors is super important.
You cannot give what you do not have.
Yes, you cannot. You can. Yeah. And so we as pastors that's our challenge is we have to be constantly filling ourselves so that we can pour more into people.
If you want to make it for 30, 40 years at the end of the day, if God's called you and let's do another pod where we talk about calling.
Yeah,
that'll be a fun one.
For sure.
But let's just assume you are called.
Yeah.
The second half now is sustaining my relationship with Jesus to make sure I am healthy in all areas of my life so that way I can have substance to offer.
So good.
God needs to multiply your fish and loaves in your heart for the thousands.
So good.
But you still need to have them. Give it to God and let him multiply it. You have to have substance.
Love that, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So now let's use Old Testament language.
Sure.
You're been in ministry, so you're a 15 in ministry priest. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What would you tell yourself now, looking back to 15 years ago? Okay.
I asked this question to all the old guys, but now it's getting asked to me.
Yes, and don't just think. I mean,
like 15, 20-year-old self.
Yes, think for yourself, but also think to other people. And you got this camera here, okay? People that are watching this, people that stare deep in, people that are watching and that are they're thinking about, I want to get into ministry.
Okay.
And I want to do this for the long run. Yeah. Or people that are like, I'm in ministry and I don't know how much longer I can do this. Yeah. What advice would you have given to yourself now, just looking back, right? And this is rapid fire. So just give me top three things that you would tell yourself back then.
Man.
And we'll end with this.
I was pretty intense and radical as a kid. We could tell that story another time too. But so if my advice for me would be a little different.
Sure.
Than someone else, because I don't know if a lot of people are in what I was in. I was really intense. I would really love the Lord. But number one would be like stay in love with the Lord. Yeah. I know that's so cheesy and so typical, but I guess don't fall in love with your idea of your calling.
Oh, good.
Fall in love with
the one who called you
and the one who called you. Yeah. That'd probably be number one. Number two.
Okay.
Which I had to learn later. This is the big one.
Okay.
Love people more than you love what you do.
Good.
I had to learn that.
Yeah.
I loved preaching more than I loved people.
Whoa. I think a pastor that we were referencing a little bit ago, he said something one time. He said that he was running late to church on a Sunday, and he was at a gas station, and some man came up to him and asked him for something, like asked him for help, money or whatever that was. And he in the moment was like, in his mind, he was like, I don't have time for you. I have to go to church. And then he was like, wait.
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't have time for a person? Like I got to go to church, right? So he had it wrong, but it's on that.
Stuff
on
like
what
that.
You're talking about.
Because God will never trust you to speak to his people if you don't love them. I tell people this too, who criticize the church. We got a lot of church critics. Sure. We've done some shady stuff too. Sure. Church isn't perfect. But I've said this to our people, and I'll say this on pods.
Yeah.
You don't get to criticize the church like Paul unless you love the church like Paul.
Oh, come on.
And so
Say that again.
You don't get to criticize the church like Paul.
Okay.
Because Paul, right, is going in and challenging and correct. He's writing letters.
But he's getting
the way
beat.
the way Philippians, he describes the church of Philippi, the church of Thessalonica, these churches, my heart, my joy, he describes the church as the crown on his head that he's going to give to Jesus' feet at the end of the age, right? Like it's the most beautiful thing in his life is the church. That's why he gets to say you're being stupid.
Because he loves them. Yeah.
And I had to learn I loved ministry
So good.
and the thought of ministry more than I loved people.
I love
and
that.
God had to undo that in me.
I think that's
still
really important.
undoing that in me.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you're 15, 16 and you're like, man, I'm called and I want to preach, it's like, bro, you missed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to fall in love with the one who called you, and you got to fall in love with the people that he called you to.
Love that, bro. Love
and
that.
that's when you get authority.
Okay. Good.
I get to speak to my people the way I speak to my people. You do too now.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they know I love them.
I love them. Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm going to enable them.
Yeah, no,
Doesn't mean I'm going to let them be unhealthy. Doesn't mean I'm there for them like at every single. I'm not their Jesus. I'm not their savior. But you know where your heart really is. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know if you really love them or not. You know, you got to make sure. And I think
So
on my
good.
early years, I loved doing church, not loving people. I did.
Yeah.
And I had to repent of that and walk through that and understand that and learn that. I think those two are deep enough.
That's good. Yeah. No, I love that, man. Thank you.
We'll leave
Yeah.
that because, and I think that's actually, I had a pastor friend of mine from Louisiana who said this recently. He goes, we were talking about pastors falling. And he says, a lot of those pastors who fall into sin, especially the big guys, they stopped doing funerals. They stopped doing weddings. They stopped going to hospitals. They stopped caring for people in the lobby. He goes, I know that because I pastored them through it. Wow. And that's the one thing I ask them is, what were their guardrails with their spouse? And then 2, how often did you love on people? He goes, and if you love people well, it will protect you because then you won't want to hurt them with falling into sin.
Yeah.
So I think loving people is such a guardrail, and loving Jesus, that's what's going to get you to the end.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that when we think of heroes,
That
we honor them. They've done those 2 things.
I
don't know how they did it, but they do.
But
those
they did
2
them.
things.
Yeah. I told you last year, the Lord really revealed that in my life, the concept of serving versus walking. And I think for me, if I could throw in that third point, would be that. What I've learned thus far in this season as a lead pastor, but I mean, I've done ministry for so many years, has been, and I can tell you honestly, sitting here in front of you, looking you face to face, there was a season in my life where I was serving the Lord. I think like at just the highest capacity my body could handle.
Yeah.
But I was not walking with the Lord. If I'm being honest with you right now,
you have to be self-aware. That's so good.
I was serving and not walking.
Yeah, we've all done
it. And then I felt like spiritually dehydrated is the best way I can say it. And I was like, why do I feel like this? Like, why do I feel tired? Why do I feel? And then I realized it's because I'm not walking with God.
You can't Martha your way into something that only Mary can experience.
Come on, man. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We've all done it, bro.
She's
So
like,
you're not the
she's
only
like
one.
prepping stuff. And Mary's just like, listening.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think encounter and breakthrough Mary experience.
Yeah.
Because then you see it years later.
Yeah.
Time later with Lazarus.
Sure.
And then you experience when she prepares Jesus for burial.
Yeah.
But yet we try to Martha our way into miracles.
Yes, 100%. I told you my Bible hero is the Apostle Paul.
Right.
But recently in this season, as I'm reading like scripture this year, I want to be John.
John's great.
He's like, he's just like Paul, Peter. These guys are, and John's just like, look at this, Peter. He's like,
yeah, and John's goated, bro.
John, like that's so dope, bro. I just want to be that guy.
John writes his gospel, and he calls himself the disciple that Jesus loved.
Like, I'm the beloved one, bro.
Bro.
Like,
he's so humble.
He's so humble,
right? But that's how he saw himself, and that's how the Lord saw him.
And that's where, for me, in this season, I'm trying to be like John in that regard, where I'm like, okay, we can build churches, we can open campuses, yes, and let's do that. But ultimately, I just want to.
Yeah, let's do things from the place of authentic relationship and intimacy, and not from the place for authentic relationship and intimacy. And these are all ways.
Come on,
we're gonna make it all the way till the end. It's
Pastor
how
Chris,
I've made it till 16 years.
This
and
is
I hope
so
to do
needed.
Way more.
Come on. And we will. Yeah. One day we'll hear good and faithful servant, man.
Oh,
and,
thanks, bro.
It's going to be awesome. Thanks. Pastor Chris, I appreciate you, man, so much. You don't understand this. I think it's such a needed conversation.
So good.
We got to run it back because there's so much more that we got to talk about. But we'll do it. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate you. I know you're busy, but thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. Love you guys. Take care.
We'll see you guys soon.
See you guys on the next one. God bless. Bye.